I'm Heather from booktubes, and today is my June reading wrap-up. In June, I read 20 books. I DNF'd 6, so I'm going to talk about 14 today. June was a busy month. It's a busy time of year. The highlights were my 12th year wedding anniversary and getting to see Taylor Swift for the first time. Also, I got Tours merch, which I ordered online like a professional. So as always, we're going to go in chronological order. The first book that I read that took me 2 weeks to read and was still a 5-star was Sweep of the Heart, which is Innkeeper Chronicles number 5 by Ilona Andrews. This one's not very focused on the romance because we already have an established couple at this point. What we do have is a intergalactic bachelor type competition, and one of the reoccurring side characters is in danger and they can't get to them. This world has access to where they need to go, and so if they do this favor for them, they'll be able to help their friend. So it's just like The Bachelor, except it is for the ruler of that nation, which is also connected to another reoccurring side character, and made for a very interesting backstory for that character. I was really happy to learn more about them. I won't spoil it if you are not there yet. This is the most recent installment of the Innkeeper Chronicles, which is a sci-fi romance series about innkeepers. Earth is a neutral planet for intergalactic travel, but you can't let humans know about it. Innkeepers host intergalactic guests. But yes, this is the most recent release. It's also a very long book. We had some fantastic reveals, and a lot of the overall series plot progress was made in this book, which is nice because it's been going on for a while. I will say that this was mostly focused on the competition, and because of that, I almost felt like Sean and Dina, our innkeepers, I almost felt like they were side characters in the story. Like, this story really wasn't even about them dealing with the competition. Even though it's kind of from Dina's POV, it was very much about this competition. So a lot of the focus in this book was on characters we've never met before and kind of felt unimportant because it's like, you're just a random guest, we don't really care about you, and that's what most of the book was focused on. But despite that, we still made a lot of progress with the plot, and I think that we're being set up for some very big movement on the plot with our characters. So overall, did love it, as I tend to do with Ilona Andrews books. Then on release day, I read Perfect Together by Kristen and Ashley. I gave this 4 stars. This is not really a romance, in my opinion. So we have a married couple who have been divorced for 3 years. In the prologue, we see him leaving her. They were married for 19 years, and then with no explanation, he just walks out on their marriage. Then it's 3 years later, yada yada, they're getting back together. They have late teen to adult children. The thing about this is this book is mostly familial drama, and it's very much based on the hero's, his abuse that he suffered, particularly from his mother, and that abusive environment and the way that shaped him, and how he never told his family about that. And like, that's what the story was about, and that wasn't really a story I was interested in having. I think that she did a good job with it. Not that I don't have any quibbles, because I do, but she did a good job with it. But overall, like, I didn't really want that story. Now, take this with a grain of salt, right? Because it took me 2 weeks to read the previous book, and I read this for like 9 hours straight the day it released, right? So how bad can it be? Not that bad. But I think particularly there's no groveling. They just get back together, wham bam, thank you ma'am, you love me again. And there were a lot of issues with their relationship that, like, if it was my relationship, I would need addressed. I would need to talk these things out, and they didn't. They just kind of skimmed over those things. And then the things that they did talk about, like, I didn't really need. So for me, it was a little bit unsatisfying because I'm not big on groveling. You know, I'm not huge on groveling, but like, I've been married for 12 years, I said. If I've been married for another 5 years and my husband leaves me with no explanation, is gone for 3 years, even though we're still interacting with each other. What is going on? has a live-in girlfriend, moves her in. She's the complete opposite of me in every single way. Like, I don't know. I'm gonna need some communication about those things specifically. And if I then find out that, you know, I knew that my husband had a very toxic family life, but to find out the extent of the abuse is something I had no idea about, that would, you know, like, that would be a huge reveal. But at the same time, they're just like, all is forgiven, it's fine. And I don't know, like, I would struggle more, I think. So these characters are in their 50s. You definitely have content warnings for child abuse, spousal abuse. The abuser is dying of cancer. So you have, like, they're an abuser and also they're your parent and they're dying and you don't really know how to feel about that. I mean, I know how I would feel about it, but maybe you don't know how you'd feel about that. You also have a coming out scene where the dad gets mad, not because the son is gay, but he's mad because the son didn't think he'd be accepted, which, questionable. Oh, that's questionable. You have a side character that was raped in the past, and that's mentioned. Yeah, overall, it's really a familial drama, and it's about abuse and healing, and I wanted a romance. Then I read Magic Claims, which is Kate Daniels' The Wilmington Years #2 by Ilona Andrews. I gave this 5 stars, so you do have to read the entire Kate Daniels series to get to this series. This is so formulaic, but it's the formula that I love. I don't care. Give it to me every day. I drink the same type of coffee every morning. Ilona Andrews can write the same book every time, and I will think it's delicious each and every time. So this was quite interesting though, especially the antagonist and the people that we were fighting and the things that we discovered. That was all very interesting. It's setting us up for so much more with this series, and I just can't wait. I want it. I want more. I love it. I love Kate and Curran. This series, you do get their alternating POVs and chapters, and it's delightful. We got to see a couple of side characters from our previous series, and we definitely saw some mention of those more side characters and more things with the pack explored, and it was just a great book. Then I read King, which is Alliance #2 by S.J. Tilley. I gave this 3 stars. This is the only book I've read by this author. Okay. I really liked a lot of this book, and the way that I'm going to talk about it, you're not going to know that, okay? So he's basically like a mafia-esque character, and her boyfriend is actually his sister's husband who is cheating on his sister, and they find this out when they all walk into the same room, right? And first of all, the slut-shaming from his sister towards her, like, unacceptable in my opinion. I am not kidding when I say I could find out that my husband is cheating on me because he walks in the room with his girlfriend, and I am not calling his girlfriend a slut and a whore, and like, that's not happening. So I wasn't a fan. But anyways, so this all happens, and then he kills the husband, but she accidentally witnesses it. And so he immediately kidnaps her and forces her into a marriage. Great setup, great setup. And the setup was pulled off really well. The thing that I literally could not get over was the way that she fat shamed herself, and even some of the side characters, but it was mainly herself doing it in like a soliloquy type of fashion, where she's just like, she's literally being kidnapped and she's like, oh, my thighs are so fat and they're sticking to the seat, and just, I am like the heaviest that I've ever been, and I'm like a medium to large, so this is not really like even my lived experience. I've never had anyone like viciously to my face attack my body or my looks, right? But I just take so much issue with the idea that we cannot write a plus size character, a fat character, a beautiful character who is not even like Even for a society that values thinness, they are still conventionally attractive because they've got tits and ass. That type of. I think that you can write that character without them having such deep body issues that must be talked about on page. And this is what killed me. So we open up with like these paragraphs of fat phobia in like the first chapter to 2 chapters of the book. And then we don't really have any more for the rest of the book, but the beginning was like horrendous with it. But she's talking so much crap about her body. She's just talking about blah. And then she's talking about how she follows all these body positive fat influencers and she's like working on not thinking that way anymore. Well, actively to describe herself to you, the reader, actively being the worst about her body. Just like saying the most awful things. And I don't need it. I don't need it. You can write a fat character. We all have body issues. You do not need to reinforce that negative talk that is not only so pervasive because of fat phobia and diet culture and just the society that we live in, but also just us critiquing ourselves. Whatever we are is not good enough. And I don't need it. I don't need it. And it's honestly so annoying. Those like 2 paragraphs of fat phobia were my biggest gripe with this book. But then also you definitely have DubCon, which is okay with me. Like the way that it played out was a way that I like for my dark romance. There's definitely some pretty severe torture scenes. They are of just, random bad guys that we don't know or anything. Like our main characters don't get tortured, but like there's some pretty graphic torture scenes. Then you have the forced marriage, the DubCon obsession. This man is obsessed with her. His security was useless. Explain to me why this man has guards patrolling his gated property if they are good for nothing. Nothing. They stopped nothing coming in. They stopped nothing going out. There was literally no purpose in them because they did nothing right the entire book. And also the 3rd act breakup was dumb and pointless. She gets injured because someone's trying to kill her, right? And she like breaks her arm or her wrist or something. And when she like comes to at the bottom of the stairs, he's like reaching for her, but he's reaching for her arm. She's unconscious. Like obviously he doesn't know. And so she shrinks away from him. So then he's like, she's scared of me. I'm just as bad as the person who tried to kill her. So then she gets out of the hospital. First of all, she gets out of the hospital 30 seconds after gaining consciousness from the severe concussion, right? Whatever. And so she needs caretaking. He spends no minutes with her. 0. He avoids her like the plague. Sometimes he watches her while she sleeps. But for like 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks after her injury, he just leaves her alone in a room to do nothing while recovering and wanting comfort. And he's like, no, I have to punish myself. She's scared of me. I don't deserve her. Like, shut up, you little whiny baby pants. Like, you are a grown man. Act like it. Besides that, I really liked the book. Then I read Longing by Chace Verity. I gave this 3 stars. This is a short, erotic, sapphic novella. It's 2 middle-aged women who are gamers. They sext, basically, and meet up, and that is the novella. It was fine. If it sounds interesting to you, go for it. Then I read The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. I gave this 5 stars. This was definitely a highlight of the month. This is a contemporary witch book, so magic is real, but most people don't know it, obviously, because we tend to burn witches. but also witches attract magic, and so witches are pretty solitary creatures. They're really not allowed to be around each other. They're not allowed to tell other people about their magic, and she has led particularly just a very isolated, lonely life. And she gets a request to come teach these 3 young witches to control their magic. And she's like, they can't even be together. Like, what is happening? But she goes, there's a grumpy librarian that she has a romance with that's like so protective of the girls and is like, you're an outsider, we don't let you here. And then there's this older gay couple. One is so down to earth and one is the most dramatic, always like he's matchmaking and just has constant projects that never get done. And then there's also a housekeeper who's just so sweet, and they're their own little found family. And when I tell you, I was in a reading slump. I didn't want to read this book. I had no intention. Like, I thought I was gonna pick it up and just be like, no can-do'sville, baby doll. And the writing is immaculate. It sucked me in immediately. It really is just a sweet, cozy, good time, and I really recommend it. If you want a happy book, a sweet book, and some interesting story developments, it was great. It was fantastic. Loved it. Then I read to my children, Meet Addie, an American Girl by Connie Rose Porter. This is the first in the Meet Addie series, maybe. I gave this 5 stars. I definitely remember this one from my childhood. I remember the tomato worm scene. I remember that. So Addie is a slave girl that is growing up on a plantation. Her whole family is slaves. And in this book, her family is separated and she and her mother escape. I think that this is a really good book to talk to your kids about slavery. I think that it's done really well. It's age appropriate. It's very moving. I was like, Heather, you cannot tear up every chapter. Just power through. It's very moving, but I think it's a really good option to talk to your kids, 8, 9 years old, maybe even a little younger, about slavery. I also really like that the rest of the series does not take place with them in slavery. They are free and making their way in Philadelphia. I just think it's a really good series. I remember loving it as a kid. My kids really liked it, although my boys were just like, this is so sad. And I was like, yeah. The one thing I will say in this, her mother like tells Addie that she can't hate white people because that would make her just as bad as them. And obviously the abuse in this book is just such a small bit of the horrors that were enacted during slavery. And I'm just never really on board with that. You can't hate your oppressor, you can't hate your abuser without being as bad as them, because you can. They're the ones that are committing the abuse, not you. You can hate them for that abuse, and that doesn't mean that you are going out and abusing other people, which is what would make you as bad as them. So I really just kind of disagree with that. And I remember disagreeing with it as a kid too. I remember being a kid and just being like, no, I think I hate them. I think that you should be allowed to hate them. And, you know, if you can't trust any white people because of it, I think that is an acceptable price to pay. But I don't think that you have to forgive these people who literally don't even treat you as a human. Like, I don't think you need to forgive that. But anyways, a reread, a great book, definitely a good option for the 8 to 10 age range. Then I read Falling for Mr. Hyde by Layla Faye. I gave this 4 stars. It's obviously a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde retelling. So it's Mr. Hyde and he has a demon monster, and paranormals, there's like this magical committee and stuff, and they're the worst per usual. And he gets tricked into being the headmaster of the school, and then she is like a shapeshifter. She can look like anybody, and she gets forced into trying to kill him, right? But the demon is literally immortal, so he's not dying. And so she's trying to kill him, and also they sleep together a lot. This is another dubious consent, BDSM. Man and monster both have sex at different times. You definitely have some pretty rough sex with this, and some sadism and all of that. So if that's not your thing, it's a bit much. So you might not like it, but I really liked it. I thought, especially like the dubious consent stuff, I thought kind of made sense since she was literally trying to kill him. I will say you have a content warning for the memory of his father beating his mother into a miscarriage, so be careful of that scene. But overall, a good time. Not a perfect time, but a good time nonetheless. If you want really steamy, intense, sexy, monster paranormal romance, some BDSM, go for it. Then I read The Villainous and the Demon Knight, Volume 1. Gave this 4 stars. This is video game characters, and she's basically reincarnated as the villainess in this game. And when I tell you there is nothing villainous or interesting about her, it's the Villainous and the Demon Knight, okay? And the Villainous is not villainous, and the Demon Knight is not a demon. He's just a regular knight that has the nickname, the Demon Knight. So I was a little underwhelmed with this one. There's a lot of setup, obviously. I think that this is the only volume that is out so far. I did like it. I always like fantasy manga, one, because I like that art style. I like that environment, you know, I like all of that. Yeah, I didn't love it. I would read more in this series though. I would give it more of a chance. And then I read And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I gave this 4 stars. So this is a genre-defining, staple, forerunner, classic mystery book. So you have 10 people on an island, and one of them is a killer. It's a closed circle mystery. People are dying and they're trying to figure it out. And I will say my ebook closed before like the reveal. The way it's written is like author's note or something like that is actually the reveal. So I was like, I don't understand what went on here, but then like you do get the explanation in the reveal. So if your ebook closes, keep going. The thing about Agatha Christie is she was undoubtedly a brilliant mystery writer. She was also super duper racist. Super racist. And there's still a racism in this book. There's a character who literally left like 20 people to die because they're natives, they're black people, they don't care about life and death the way that a white man does anyway, so it's fine. So that was pretty horrific, not gonna lie. But something that you should know about this book is it was originally, the title was a slur, and then it was changed to 10 Little Indians, and then it was changed to And There Were None, because in Jim Crow America, the original title of this book was too racist to publish in Jim Crow America. So it's a lot, right? As much as this book has been edited to get rid of racism, it's still in there. So proceed with caution with that. I think that should be acknowledged. Also, the explanation for the mystery I thought was a little bit questionable. It's kind of like a psychological experiment via murder, and I don't know. I'm glad I read it. I don't really feel compelled to read more Agatha Christie. I do like the adaptations that we've been getting, but I just kind of wanted to know, and now I know. Then I read Headcase, which is Necessary Evils number 4 by Onley James. I gave this 4 stars. Listen, there's like 6 4 stars in a row. Don't at me, okay? I DNF'd other books. The ones that I finished were 4 stars, and I'm not changing their rating just because other books were also 4 stars, okay? This is the male psychopath vigilante killers series that I love because I love a good psychopath. This is another one where the flavor is the same every single book. But if you like the flavor, it's okay. Especially, I feel like I like it more because I have really spaced out reading the books. I read one like every few months. And I think that's pretty good because they're very, very, very similar relationships, I will say. This one has consensual non-consent and primal, which I like. It also has very rough sex. Like they are bruising, bleeding, beating each other. So be careful of that. Also, more content warnings would be suicide, coercive coerced suicide, conspiracy theories, and a narcissistic mother. His brother committed suicide, and in this, he insists on watching the video of his brother taking his own life, and I just don't like that. This is like the third time maybe in this series where like the love interest character insisted on watching like their own abuse or their own trauma when they found the video of it for the case, and I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't agree with it, and I really hope she doesn't keep doing it in every single book because I'm at my limit. I'm at my limit with it. Not a fan. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's weird. But if you want that obsessive, over-the-top, insta-lust relationship that's a little bit dark, this does that very well. And I read The Governess Affair, which is Brothers Sinister 0.5 by Courtney Milan. I gave this 4 stars. So our main character is a governess and she was raped by a duke. And he is the duke's fixer. And he does not know that the duke raped her. He's worried that that might be a possibility, but he doesn't know that. So he's supposed to be getting rid of her, and he's like very attracted to her, not just physically at all, but they have great banter, fantastic banter. He grew up in a very abusive household. You see some flashbacks of that. He's just like, I can't love because I'll be like my father. And they have a marriage of convenience because she does not want her child to be a bastard. And he's like, well, I'll marry you, but it can't be a real marriage. They were so sweet. He needed to get over his hangups because like you deserve happiness. But it was very, very sweet despite, you know, them having pretty horrific things that brought them to where they are. They were so sweet to each other. Then I read Critical Role, which is Vox Machina Origins #1 by Matthew Mercer. Give this 4 stars. This is like a 25-page comic graphic novel, Dungeons and Dragons like characters. I will say it opens up, first page, we have a stillborn baby that is being sacrificed to the swamp. So that was pretty horrific. That was a lot. I was like, wasn't ready for that. But yeah, you have a couple elves trying to figure out why this town is cursed. And that's it. And we left, you know, very much just, it's just the beginning of the story. We didn't find anything out. It was just 25 pages. So it was fine. I don't know that I really feel the need to continue, but it was fine. Fun little update, I'm changing my rating to 3 stars and I don't want to hear anything about it. Okay? It was fine. And then lastly, to my children, I read Talking to Dragons, which is Enchanted Forest Chronicles #4 by Patricia C. Reed. 5 stars. This is an all-time favorite of mine. I read it as a kid. Love this series. This is the book that she wanted to write that she wrote the other books for. So the previous 3 books are about Cimarron, who is a princess that doesn't want to be a princess, so she is a princess to the dragons and her adventures, and she marries the king of the Enchanted Forest. And then in the last book, the king was locked in the castle. Only one of his family members can use the sword to free him, and she was pregnant. So we have waited 17 years for this child to grow up enough to be able to hopefully free his father. However, the wizards have a spell out that can find the sword, but it can only find the sword if the person using the sword knows what they have. So his mother has trained him in all sorts of things, but she has not told him anything. He knows nothing. He doesn't know she's a princess. He doesn't know his father is the king of the Enchanted Forest. He doesn't know that his father is missing. He knows nothing, right? And he goes on this quest because his mother tells him to. He gets a fire witch along the way. He gets a kitten. He gets a baby dragon. And it's just a very, very interesting quest. And it's the reason that the series exists. So my kids loved it. And of course, I remember absolutely adoring the series. This is like my 3rd, maybe 4th time reading it. So all-time favorite. It's a great, cozy fantasy series. Definitely you can enjoy at any age. So that's it. That's all the books that I read in June. Weird month. July is going to be busy as well. Also probably gonna be a little bit weird reading wise. And I won't lie, like I could have read more books, but I did TikTok a lot instead. So yeah, weird month. But sometimes we have those. So my next video later in this week will be the wrap up of all of my DNFs of the second quarter. So if you do want to hear about the DNFs, that's coming next. So thanks so much for watching. Bye.